Well, hey everyone, welcome to Stewardship Leader. Today I'm joined by Andrew Brooks and John Warren from Subsplash. We're going to explore how technology is shaping generosity and how Subsplash is equipping churches to disciple their people in stewardship in this digital age. Andrew, John, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Welcome to Stewardship Leader.
Thanks so much, Leo. Happy to be here.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for really what you guys do. You are a partner of CSN. We've gotten to know each other a little bit. I wanted you guys to come on and really share what Subsplash does. You guys have an amazing history and resources, and that the church really needs to have. And so I wanted you to come on and share that, and really for our network of churches that are connected with CSN to learn more about who you guys are, what you do, what your mission is. So let's first just begin with both of you. I want to take a little bit of time to learn about you, for our audience to learn about you. So tell us about your roles at Subsplash. How long have you each been part of the team there? And then let's get into the mission, vision, and how you serve the church. But let's first start with you individually.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, like you said, Andrew, I'm the senior manager of enterprise customer success here at Subsplash. I have had the privilege of working alongside the Subsplash team for a little over 7 years now. And it's just been a great opportunity that God has blessed me and my family with, just to see churches thrive and equip people with the gospel and change lives.
Awesome. How about you, John?
Yeah, my name's John. It's great to be here. I've been on the team at Subsplash for 4 years, which is crazy to me. Previous to that, I was a pastor of a church in Dallas on the pastoral team and served in a bunch of different roles. And so coming to the Subsplash team, working in client success, and in particular, now my role is really focused on enterprise giving growth. So walking with the churches that leverage Subsplash for many of their digital tools, helping them see growth in generosity and stewardship within their church is just a great joy. It's wonderful to have spent time in pastoral ministry, step out of that season, but really still have the opportunity to leverage my experience pastoring and leading a church. Now I just get to do it kind of on a grander scale with a lot more people and a lot larger reach. So I'm grateful to God for that opportunity.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love whenever I see someone that's been in ministry or served in the church, then step out and serve the church, right, at a larger scale. So that's amazing. And your experience, of course, being on staff at our church for so many years really helps you to understand what churches are going through. So it gives you that insight. So that's wonderful. I love that so many organizations like yours are tapping these spiritual leaders that can come in and really have that benefit to really connect with the church on the right levels. So tell us about your vision. What does Subsplash do? What is your mission, vision? How do you serve churches today?
Yeah, great question. I mean, our mission statement, I love this. It's kind of what's kept me at the company for so long. Our mission statement is to glorify God and proclaim Jesus as Lord. Our vision, our CEO says it best. It's literally to equip every church. So we really want to equip pastors and leaders of churches, as well as congregants, with the tools necessary to go out and spread the good news, right? It's like the Great Commission that Christ gave us is our mission as a company. We want people to hear that Christ is for them, and we want to change lives and bring people to the kingdom of God. So what that means practically is we get to build tools like mobile apps and payment processing, and even a suite of media tools and different engagement tools that help people engage with gospel-centered content and bring people back to what I truly think is the greatest thing that God has ever given us, which is the message of Christ.
Mm-hmm. That's
Well,
awesome.
and one of the only thing I would add is just that there are so many people who work at Subsplash now who came to faith in Christ because of, or part of their story anyway, was because people shared sermons through the Subsplash platform with them as God was calling them to himself. It's unbelievable. It's like from all across the country, people sharing the message of what Christ has done through Subsplash platforms, making the message of Jesus incredibly accessible so that people can hear and respond to the good news of Jesus. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. And it's such a technology forward company from what I've read about you guys, what I've learned about you in the last few months since we've known each other is even at the beginning, using technology and jumping on and creating apps for these kinds of opportunities that churches have even before the Apple Store was available. That's pretty remarkable how forward thinking your organization's been from the beginning. So I love that. And obviously, you both closely work with churches and around the country. I know when you came to visit here in the Dallas area, you were at a conference, so you guys obviously are connected with a lot of churches, serve a lot of churches. But as churches consider adopting new technology, which is always a challenge for churches, I'm sure you guys know that. What are
Mm.
some of the biggest needs or opportunities you're seeing?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, this could be the entire podcast, to be honest, is just talking about the needs that churches have and how much of a challenge that is. Maybe we'll get into that as well.
Hmm.
But from where I'm sitting, I think churches, I hate to say it, but they've lagged behind in some technology spaces.
Yeah,
We firmly believe as a company that as Christians, we should be mirroring the creative nature of our God and creating the very best things in the marketplace.
agreed.
We shouldn't just have stuff that's like okay because it's the church. It should
Hmm.
be the best because we're reflecting the glory of God in everything that we do. So I think that's a really big need is that churches have technology that works incredibly well. People are very adept when they're using technology. They know when things aren't working the
Hmm.
way that they should. They know how things should look and feel from a technology standpoint. And when the church is missing out on that, when they're not engaging in technology that's of a really high quality, it can just lead to all sorts of downstream effects that are not great for the church. And then I think in terms of opportunity, it's just making sure that the things we have in place are built to scale for the future. No church or pastor that I talk to is like, you know what? I'd really love my church to get smaller over the next decade, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, we don't want transfer growth, people leaving this church and coming to mine. We want to see more people come to know the message of Jesus and be a part of our congregations and churches. So the technology that we have has got to be scalable for the future, which means that the company that we're partnering with needs to be investing in that technology so that it scales with the growth of our church. And so
Hmm.
very many of the churches that we see and interact with are using older technology solutions that maybe fit 10 years ago. They haven't really examined if their tech is in a good spot. And then that's leaving them sort of behind the eight ball as their church is scaling and growing.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So on the flip side, what are some of the biggest challenges churches face when implementing digital tools? You talked about the fact that they're behind. No, I would agree. I think churches have been slow to adapt to technology. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe pastors just are not techie. That may be it. We do have an older, aging senior pastor group. We know that, and that obviously is going to make an impact. But what are some of the challenges churches face, and especially when it comes to giving and engagement?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Leo. I'd say one of the challenges we see, right, is I think churches are incredibly intentional when it comes to implementing things like new doctrine, when it comes to implementing things like new curriculum studies, even like from a pastoral level, like what are we going to teach on? But one thing that we see pretty often is that when it comes to technology, sometimes it's just like a quick decision and they're throwing something out there and there's not a lot of intentionality behind it. Right. So from like a technology perspective, we adopt things like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter/X or whatever it's called now. And we say like, okay, this is gonna good. It's gonna get stuff out there, but we don't ask like, okay, what are we putting out there where people are interacting, and in what arena are they interacting with it in?
Right.
Right. From an like a generosity side, I say, and this is probably no surprise to you, the biggest challenge we're seeing is largely the donors of the church of the last, let's say like 20, 30 years are aging out, right? And there are our big givers. We call them legacy givers when we're consulting churches here at Subsplash.
Hmm.
And statistics show that Gen Z millennials are just as likely to give, but they're not giving the same amount to the church that like the baby boomer generation has given,
Yeah.
right? They need something that pushes them towards what we believe truly is like more of a narrative approach of like, hey, what am I participating in here? And so we see a lot of churches where they're not even asking the question like, hey, what are the demographics behind our donors? Do we have like 70 to 80% of our total annual donations coming from 60 and above? And
Mm.
that's going to be a problem in about 20 years
Or less. Yeah.
or less. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. It's a definite challenge. And we here at TSN keep a pretty close eye on the giving trends and where it's going every year. And unfortunately, it's still trending in the wrong direction. But I love that organizations like yours are not just trying to provide a service, which is needed. A giving platform is needed. All the digital tools you guys have developed and continue to develop are needed. But it's really not about the tool. The tool just makes it possible to do what really matters, which is the transformation, the equipping, the discipleship. I know that's what you guys are in it for, right? You're here not just for the transaction, but the transformation. So, from your vantage point, as you think about the trends in stewardship and obviously in digital giving, how has the church approach to stewardship and generosity evolved, especially in recent years? You talked about the last 20, 30 years, but even more recent, what trends are you seeing? What's happening in that area?
Well, this will likely come as no surprise to pastors who are listening to a podcast about stewardship and generosity. But I think it still needs to be said that the massive transition to digital giving, just it can't be overstated, right? I mean, I think before COVID, the amount of churches that we were talking to, and Subsplash serves 20,000 churches today.
Hmm.
Now there's 330,000 churches in the United States and Canada, so we've got a ways to go here. But of the 20,000 that we serve, we'd be talking to churches every day that didn't even have a way to give online,
Hmm.
which is kind of insane. That was only 5 years ago. So
Yeah.
that has been a significant trend. And even those who have it as an option available are not thinking about it within an ecosystem of discipleship. They're just thinking about it as a tool that they have on the side. And that's so much of what the work of CSN is doing, right? Is to help orient people around the idea of stewardship and generosity holistically and not just as this very narrow thing of I'm going to write a check to my church. It's like that's not generosity, it's not stewardship. It might be both, but it
Hmm.
might be neither. And so that's something we've certainly seen. And then I think the last thing I would say about this, I don't know that I'm seeing it as much as I'm prayerfully hoping to see it more and more. But as we know, the trust in institutions is at an all-time low,
Hmm.
and the church is not exempt from that. And so the churches that I see that are growing in their digital giving are the ones that are transparent, who have high levels of accountability, who aren't making decisions around the church budget and generosity and stewardship in back rooms and back corners with boards of people that nobody in the congregation knows, but they're actually telling the story of how God is using the worshipful giving in the church to make an impact for the kingdom. And they're very transparent about that. So I've seen it a little bit. My hope is that I continue to see it more and more as we continue consulting with churches around these ideas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a key. I mean, I love that you share that, John, because that's really what this is why so many pastors I think sometimes feel like they're a little bit shy in talking about money because they don't want it to come across as the wrong message. But that's where transparency really is tested, right? That's where humility and truth can be told rather than doing something and then I don't know, even the communication itself about giving, that's such an important thing. It's you can have all the tools, you can have everything. People understand that churches need funds to operate.
Mm-hmm.
Many people even understand, especially the older generation, that giving to a church is biblical. But it still leaves it to the senior pastor, it leaves it to the decision makers to embrace this and then to communicate it not as a give because we have things to do, but give because it is your opportunity, your responsibility, your privilege to honor God through this transactions. That's it's good. Yeah, Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I think what that looks like, the church has gotten really creative on, right? I recently got to spend some time with Brandon Beard, who's on the executive pastoral team at Compass Church down there in Dallas.
Hmm.
And he's been implementing what's called like a generosity moment with their church, where it's like, it's not even a direct ask for generosity or for tithing. It's just a story that's shared about what the church did with the money, right?
Mm.
Like what the tithing led to. And sometimes it's something, mind boggling, like, hey, we, saved 150 people in a mission field in Southeast Asia. And sometimes it's as simple as like, we were able to buy a new HVAC system for our campus over here.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be this thing where we have like a very direct ask all the time. Sometimes it can be as simple as like, hey, what are we doing, and how do we incorporate that with what we're doing holistically as a church?
Yeah, agree. Transparency is huge, and everything you do and how you do it will either let people know you are transparent or will leave them with questions that unfortunately they'll answer. They're not going to be good answers if they're having to come up with them
Hmm.
themselves. So, continue to talk about digital giving. When did Subsplash begin offering donation tools? I know it wasn't there at the beginning, and what drove that decision? How's that giving changed since then?
Yeah, that's really good. I actually love telling the story. So when we first started, right, we were just an app company. We developed apps. We were actually the first company, fun fact, to develop long form media. So we came to the market with long form media before YouTube did, if you can believe that. So
Well,
that's a fun one we love bragging about, just because it was amazing to hear that the first thing that really hit the app stores with long form media was the message of Christ. So just a little humble brag there. But in 2015, we really evaluated just what the industry needed at the time. The industry just being churches, and one thing we noticed was that there were a lot of payment processors out there, but the church was losing money off of each transaction at just, uh, you know, a ungodly rate, for lack of a better term, right? Like when you're
mhm.
talking about the industry standard at the time being anywhere between 3.2 to 3.9% on any credit card or debit card transaction. Our CEO, Tim Turner, at the time realized like we had a huge opportunity to save some of that money for the church. And so in 2016, we launched Subsplash Giving. And at the same time, we launched this really, honestly, a crazy idea. It's called Grow Curve. Where the average, right, the average process, probably the pastors listening to this know this, when you go to negotiate your transaction rates with a payment processing company, you got to go down the line item and get uh, specific to each card what your rate will be. Well, we said, hey, it shouldn't be that difficult for the church. We should just start with a base rate of 2.3%. And then depending on how much the church processes, right? So the more the church processes, we're actually going to give money back to the church.
Love that.
So what's been amazing about that is we've been able to literally send back millions of dollars to the church in the form of like, I think at first it was actual checks we were mailing churches. And now it's all digital as everything is.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I'm familiar with that, and you're one of the few that actually does that, where actually the fees go down over time as giving goes up, and that should be really what happens if the digital tools you guys are providing to a church is allowing that church to do what they need to do much better and more fluid, and not send them to a different website and trying to close that transaction, which a lot of times obviously makes people nervous and then they stop.
Hmm.
But if you're doing that, then giving should go up, and as it goes up,
Right.
then that should be rewarded. And I love that you guys aren't taking the profit and saying, "Great, we just make more because they're successful," but you're actually giving it back, and that says a lot about your organization. So I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, I've got this story that I like to tell. It's when I took the job with Subsplash, we were moving up from Nashville. My wife is from the Seattle area. We had offices in Seattle at the time, and I remember sitting down and praying about it, talking with my wife at the time. I'm like, "Hey, here's the business. This is what they do. There is this part where they actually, process transactions for tithes." And I remember saying, "I will leave Subsplash if I ever feel like I'm the table in the temple that Jesus is flipping over."
Mm.
And
Good.
going on 8 years now, it's not happened. So I love that I get to work for a place where I feel good about what we do and about the lives that we're changing because of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, again, nothing wrong with profit. Profit is
No,
good, but
absolutely.
that has to be tempered with why are we here? What are we doing? And so again, that's very unique for you guys, and I appreciate that you do it the way you do it. Continue to talk about this giving area. What are the key factors that help a church grow in its giving? I know that's something you guys want. Are there any patterns or stories that stand out? Anything that you guys do specifically that really helps a church in growing their giving?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we always start off with in our consulting when churches adopt Subsplash giving is we look at what we have and we call it the discipleship journey. And it's sort of all of our tools laid out in a wheel. It's not linear because discipleship is very rarely linear, right? People are jumping around and, two steps forward, one step back. But we view all of the tools that we offer through the lens of the discipleship journey. Giving is a part of discipleship. It's not the only thing
Yeah.
that's what makes a disciple of Jesus, but it is part of that larger ecosystem. And so, one of the things that we really firmly believe is that giving has to be couched within that discipleship journey. It has to live within an ecosystem of that discipleship journey. It can't be just a bolt on tool that you have that's disconnected from everything else that you're doing as a church.
Yeah.
And so, we invest very heavily with people resources in consulting with our churches as they launch Subsplash Giving. This is not you turn this on and you figure it out on your own. We actually meet with you on a regular cadence over the course of weeks and months to help make sure that when you adopt this technology, it really is driving your mission forward and helping making more and better disciples of Jesus. And I think for me, a few of the stories that stand out is it's churches that you've never heard of before, that I won't name because I didn't ask them. But there's a church in California, like in the LA area. It is in the most just nothing neighborhood. Like we drove by the building and we're like, surely that can't be the church that we're that we're coming to meet with. But we show up in their office and they have this beautiful magazine. They produce it quarterly. It's dozens and dozens of pages of
Mm.
the millions of dollars they are giving around the United States and around the world, making an impact for Jesus. And the reason, I mean, apart from the Spirit of God and all the things that we know are true and happening behind the scenes that we can't see, is that they are just hyper focused on telling the story.
Mhm.
They're hyper focused on their giving being connected to the larger ecosystem of their technology tools. And they're very committed about telling the story of what happened with those resources. Another church we visited in like rural Pennsylvania, they are the hub in their county for the food bank.
Mm.
And they have a grocery store that people from the community can come to and actually shop. They have a clothing store and like children's, you know, car seats and baby clothes and things store that people can come and shop. And so when I think about a church growing its giving, I think about the opportunities that growth is going to provide for that church to reach into their community and share the hope of Jesus with them. And those are the ones that are always going to stand out to me. The buildings are cool and necessary, and, those are fun. And it's interesting to see how churches are doing different things in their facility. But really, the heart and seeing how the worshipful giving of the church is helping to provide for the least of these is, I think God really cares about that. So I care
No,
about it
no
too.
doubt. Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. That's great. Love that story. Both of those. Those are great. And obviously that I could see that inspiring generosity. I mean,
Yeah.
it'd be very compelling when you're part of a church that's doing that and practicing that and being transparent about what they're doing. And then the other thing that I always am amazed at when I'm talking to churches is how much they do and how little they communicate that to their people.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like if you're going to do these things, it's not bragging. You need to tell people what your church is doing. You can't just say, well, we gave this much away. Well, no, you have to have a story and
Mhm.
emphasize it because people want to be part of those kinds of things. One of our friends here at CSN did a session a couple of years ago at our forum and talked about why people aren't giving. And
Mhm.
one of the he's done like a year-long project research to find out why aren't people giving? How can we impact that? And one of the things that he saw was that people were just thinking, well, the church is the hero. They just want my money to go do a bunch of stuff instead of saying, no, 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 you're the hero. You get to give, and then you get to see what happens with it.
Mhm.
Because giving is not giving to the church; you're giving to the Lord to do something.
Mhm.
The church is just a transaction. But many people feel like when they give to the church, it's just going into this void. I mean, they
Right.
understand it goes to staff, to pay the staff salaries and benefits and those things. They understand that. Nobody's, unaware of that. But what is happening with the rest of it? And
Yeah.
and the churches just fail to communicate it. And what you just shared, the stories need to be shared. Generosity is it's encouraged. It's not just taught. It needs to be encouraged. It needs to be displayed. And people really, I mean, generosity begets generosity. When you see it,
Yeah.
you want to be part of it. And I think that's such a wonderful thing that you guys are talking to churches and seeing that impact and helping them to really understand that talking about
Well,
these things, being transparent, so important.
yeah, and I think just to add a little bit more, the fact that Subsplash gets to serve 20,000 churches and we've transitioned, thousands of churches onto the Subsplash giving platform. Generosity is contagious
Hmm.
Mhm.
within a church, but also within the church. And the experience that we have and the stories that we get to share and tell other churches to inspire them to be more transparent and tell more stories. And you just don't get that if you're just kind of off in a silo as a church doing your own thing. That's
Hmm.
one of the beautiful things about the Christian Stewardship Network. It's a network of churches that are talking about how do we serve the greater mission in the kingdom of God, not
Mhm.
just build my little kingdom over here, right? You've got men and
Hmm.
women there who are committed to helping and encouraging other churches. And Subsplash fits right into that stream. When we're consulting, it's, hey, this church over here is doing this. What do you think about that? Does that fit your culture? And we're able to like pull all of these threads together to help churches be more effective in the mission.
Yeah, love that. So you guys develop a wide range of features and tools, obviously. And as you're prioritizing which tools to develop, how does generosity fit into that? How do you guys consider that specific area of the tools that you're developing, and how does that fit in?
I think by God's grace, we're able to help the church process billions of dollars, which is just such a delight to be able to say that that's billions of dollars poured into the kingdom, into kingdom work, and doing the things like John was just saying. So generosity does play a big piece in our roadmap. The best way that we do this is, I think, a couple different ways. So one, our product managers, I truly believe this, are some of the best product managers in the world, not just in the industry, not in just church tech. I mean, we're pulling people away from places like Microsoft and Apple. They are just the best in the industry, and they're just on fire for God, and they want to come do what we're doing, what we're a part of, what the church is doing. The secondary piece there is each client at Subsplash gets a client success manager. So somebody that they can call, talk to, strategize with, and express how they're using the technology in their church. And at the same time, give feedback. And we take that feedback and we listen to it and we actually implement on it. And so I'm thrilled just where we're at as a company, because we're able to have people like John walk into congregations and say like, hey, what are you all doing? And how can we build technology that helps equip you to do what you're doing? And he takes that, sits in meetings with our developers, and we actually go out and build on that. So, and I think I could be wrong here. I've got some corporate life before Subsplash. That's pretty unique to just, I feel like, what is the normal operation of like, okay, well, what's going to make us the most amount of money? What's going to make us the most amount of profit? Not that profit's bad. Like you said, Leo, we do want to be profitable as a company because it allows us to innovate and be better.
Right.
But at the same time, we want to be profitable. And at the same time, we want to build stuff that lasts and create products that actually changes lives.
Love it. So, what role does AI play in how churches foster generosity? I know that's been something that many churches and organizations have been implementing. How do you guys do that, especially in the area of generosity and engagement in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just plug in somebody's like name and phone number and address, and it'll like contact them. A robot will contact them,
Mm,
and compel them to give. No, we would never do that. That would be crazy. I think that, AI is is currently a disruptor in the tech space. Subsplash has invested in AI tools to help elevate and amplify the voice of the local pastor in the church. People spend 44 hours a week on their cell phone. I don't know if most pastors listening to this know that. The average is 5 to 8 hours per day. They're in your church 1 to 2 hours a week if they're very committed. My church did a survey, and our people come 1.5 times a month on average. So they're spending a ton of time on their phones. And so, again, thinking about the discipleship journey and all the places in which we have the opportunity to engage with people who are a part of our church and sort of help them along in that journey, AI certainly plays a big role in making sure that we're able to create content that engages people where they're at and finds people who may not be connected to your church. But as it relates specifically to generosity and giving, I mean, I think I don't want to say too much for maybe some obvious reasons, but I think gone are the days of static reports that your bookkeeper is running and delivering to senior pastor or executive leadership team or however your church is structured, where you've built a query and you run that query and then hand them a spreadsheet. That's
mm,
not how the world is working anymore. Real language question asking to your data is where things are heading. So you can define the terms as you're asking the question. We as a church think that somebody who gives more than $5,000 a year is a potentially high capacity giver. Show me all those people.
mm,
Um, who has given a gift in the last 6 months every month but doesn't have a recurring donation set up. These are things that you can think about in real language that is harder to translate into a report because you got to do parameters and it's a mess. And then it's just a
yeah.
spreadsheet. How helpful is that? So we're thinking about it. We're invested heavily in making sure that we are, again, creating the best technology possible to equip the church to make disciples.
It's great. It's great. Yeah, and I definitely see that as going to be a benefit to so many churches to cut down on the time. Not only cut down on the time, I think obviously that's important to be more productive, but also to get more relevant, clear data that won't require some expert Excel guru to put it together,
Right.
the software or whatever. So,
Yeah, and again, something I mentioned earlier is making sure that your donation ecosystem lives within all the things your church is doing.
mm,
There are certainly insights to be gained from how does somebody engage with our other content and how is that connected to them as a donor? Right now, is anybody connecting the dots in that data? I don't think
yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah,
But we at Subsplash are able to receive so many inputs because of how engaging our technology is that we are going to be able to connect the dots way more than other people.
yeah. It's good. So that leads me to the next question. Many pastors are struggling, obviously, with their congregation engagement. As you said, John, even in your own church, the average attendance is certainly not weekly. What
Mhm.
are some of the top challenges that you see in churches facing today, the community engagement, and how is Subsplash helping address those challenges?
Yeah. I mean, and this one weighs on us quite a bit. Like John said earlier, it's like the average congregant right now, the average person, not even congregant, the average person spends 5 to 8 hours on their phone a week.
Mm, yeah.
John, I think you say this better than I do, but there is just like a saturation of content out
Mm,
today, right? I forget who told me this. I was sitting down with a client at some point, like the CEO of a major streaming company. I'm not going to say their name. said that their biggest competitor wasn't any of the other streaming companies. Their biggest competitor was sleep. Sleep. They were trying to figure out how to keep people awake so that they could consume more content because it was better
Yeah.
for their metrics, right? So, man, I feel for pastors. I mean, it is stacked against them, right? And I think there's this prevalence of wanting to be the next like YouTube sensation, of wanting to be the next like major YouTube pastor or major online church. But I'd say the hope that I'm seeing is that we engage a lot of churches where that's not their end goal. Their end goal really is just to engage the people at their church. And so that's your biggest opportunity as a pastor right now. How do I get the people in my church to build community and engage with content that's actually more life-giving than them scrolling through 8 hours of TikTok reels or videos a day? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to equip, pastoral teams essentially with a technology that like pulls them back into the word, pulls them back into healthy practices that are actually gospel centered, right? Into more prayer, into more time reading the Bible daily, into small group discussions, into small groups, even into messaging environments that aren't controlled by companies that truly just want to monetize you.
Yeah.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think these are things that maybe we don't think about as we're implementing technology. It's like, well, hey, X product is free. And so we're going to use that. And it's like, hey, have we ever thought about that? Maybe by the church using this video offering, they're going to get pushed suggestions that maybe aren't Christ centered or maybe outside our sphere. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's our biggest opportunity.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Yeah. I mean, I know that that's something you guys are focused on and trying to not just understand, you obviously understand more than the average of where people are spending their time, and that technology is here to stay. People are engaged with it. How do you then guide people to use it responsibly, if I can say that, and use it for something that will last rather than wasting their time 5 to 8 hours on an app that won't change your life? If anything, it gives you the wrong dopamine rush. Dopamine rush you should be searching for is to have more time with the Lord, and technology can help us to do that. And so I love that you guys are innovating and looking at how to use that. That you're actually focused on that. That's very encouraging.
Yeah. I mean, what was
'Cause
the
there's more out there than Instagram, Facebook, and X, right?
Mhm.
right? There was a study that came out recently. John, maybe you remember what it was, but there was a study that was something like reading the Bible 2 to 3 times a week actually led to less depression. 4 times a week? Is it
Yeah.
4 times a week? See, I'm like terrible with the actual statistics, but 4 times a week led to less depression, right? And to like an overall healthier life.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, what if we could just get, 1/3 of our end users out there, out of the millions and millions and millions of end users we have, to just pick up the Bible on their phone in their
Yeah.
church's app 4 times a week? What could God do with that? Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah.
So it's such an
Yeah.
opportunity.
Great. Well, as we get to the end of our conversation, which I thoroughly enjoyed, how can listeners learn more about Subsplash and all the great things you guys are offering?
Well, my cell phone number is nine. No, sorry.
I'd love
Never
to see
mind.
that.
I know. I got unknown numbers blocked. I don't know if you guys do that, so that would be a terrible
Yeah,
way.
same here.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, that's the world we live in today.
yeah. So a couple different ways. You can go to subsplash.com. If you don't use Subsplash at all, subsplash.com. If you do use Subsplash already, your church uses Subsplash already, you have a client success manager. All 20,000 of the churches that we serve have a dedicated success manager whose role is to strategize and consult with them on the tool and make sure that the investment that they're making in Subsplash they're seeing the return on that investment.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a client success manager, reach out to them, or again, just go to subsplash.com. And if you fill out the form and you're already a client, then your client success manager will reach out to you. But that's the easiest way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. The two of you um, have just so fit into our culture at CSN. Just love your hearts for what you do, and really appreciate the not just the technology and the the forward thinking that you have, but really your heart for ministry and really sticking to the mission of, making Christ known. And then that's the most important thing. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today and help us understand Subsplash better, but also the heart behind this ministry that you guys have. I know it's a for-profit organization, but really it's a ministry-driven culture, and I love that. So thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Yeah, thanks, Leo. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you. I also want to thank you, our listeners, for being with us today. Thank you for listening. If you found value in this podcast, we just would just love for you to share it with someone. Let another pastor, another church leader know not only that this resource exists, but all of the different organizations that are connected to CSN, such as Subsplash and all the wonderful things that they're offering. And reach out to Subsplash. Someone there can definitely help you to strategize, to think through how to improve in this, not just in the area of giving and generosity and stewardship, but in other areas that they have obviously tools for. So take advantage of this great organization and all that they offer. They've put a lot of time and effort and resources to provide it to churches of any size. And I think that's a wonderful thing. So if you want to know more about what we do here at CSN, if this is your first time listening to us, you can find us at christianstewardshipnetwork.com. We have a wonderful network of churches that love stewardship and generosity, understand it as a part of our discipleship process, and would love to share that with you. And we would love to resource you any way we could so that you can also take steps and implement this within your own discipleship path at your church. Again, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Stewardship Leader.